tell me, is your pleasure a little more paint? Here's your look at the Hellraiser Reissue Ultimate Pinhead. Yearning to surpass the earthly limits of pleasure and pain, Frank purchases a mysterious puzzle and inadvertently opens a portal to hell when he solves it. His body is torn to pieces by the Cenobite residents of the other realm, but something of Frank lingers, waiting on the blood of others to return to life. Figure includes 3 weapons, 2 swappable heads, and 2 different versions of the Lamet configuration box. All hell is about to break loose, but before it does, let's grab the tape measure and see how tall the ultimate Pinhead stands. Now, I already have had a look at this figure before, and I was a little honestly disappointed. It was more from the paint than anything else. I found this guy actually at my local Toys R Us, and noticed that the date was different from the one that I picked up before, so I decided to give it a chance. And sure enough, there are changes that have been made with the reissue here that's 2 years later. There are some things, though, that I will say that the original one does a little bit better, and we'll do some more comparisons in a second. But ahead of ourselves, though, let's look at the figure. The figure is only about 7 inches in height. I say only like it's diminishing the figure. Or the figure's about 17.5 centimeters tall. But like I did say, I did have a look at this figure before. Here's what the original Ultimate Pinhead looks like. Now, while the costuming, I will say, is better on the original release, I do think the head paint is a lot better on the newer release. Things that I had issues with was the brightness of the blue that was used on the original head sculpt, which has now been fixed on the newer release. Again, we're going to get down more in comparisons in a second. Another comparison I thought would be fun to make was to bring in the original Pinhead. This would have been years ago when NECA was first dabbling into the arts of puzzle boxes. This was either from the first or second wave. There was 3 waves, I believe, in total, each wave having a build-a-figure component. The first one being the Lamet configuration box, the second one being the Pillar of Souls, and the third one being Leviathan. I've had a look at all 3 of the waves here on this channel, granted years ago, but if that's something you guys certainly want to check out, you should be able to find it. No solving a puzzle box required. And before we actually get down to looking at the accessories to come include with Pinhead, which is the same as before, I did also want to bring in the boxes so you guys can see as well. The boxes from the front look almost identical. I would say, if anything, the newer one that I picked up has a more darker imaging of Pinhead. Love this artwork, by the way, that they used on the front of the box. Now, with the original box that I did pick up, you'll notice it on the bottom here. There's the lot number. The lot number in this case was 93N081219, the ending digits being the year of manufacturing. The newer one that I released isn't so much new, but at least on the bottom here, it actually is 9112321, so it's 2 years later. Again, when you're looking at these, I hope to have videos like this be more helpful than anything else. It's more just to show you that not always is the case that picking up newer figures guarantees you better looking figures. There are, better improvements, I think, for the head sculpt. But again, I don't think that the paint is as delivering as well for the body. But again, the difference of colors are also dictated by your lot number. So 1219 was the original one that we looked at. In this case, 2321 is the newer one I found locally. Anyways, though, let's have a look at the accessories that come included with Pinhead. First of which, there's things that he actually wears on his body. Tools for surgery, if you will. The figure comes, first of all, included with a hook blade. I'm going to do this with each of the cases. Here's the blade that actually come included with the original release one that two years prior. The coloring of the blade seems about the same, although the coloring of the blood looks a little, at least for me, darker. The handles, as we can flip this around, are also seeming to be the same. Now, in both the cases also, there's a little hook here on the end. The hook will be something that actually hooks onto the string on the front here of his Cenobite suit. So again, like when I'm looking at it, there's a little bit more blood here in the newer release, and the blood also seems, again, looking at it, a little bit darker. The next thing the figure comes included with is just a smaller scalpel blade. It looks a little bit more rusted as well when you compare it with the original release. This is something where I notice a difference right away. I just, again, hold it up to my hand so you guys can see. The one on the bottom is the new 2021 release. The one to the top is the 2019 release. See how the one to the top is a little bit more lighter, a little more silver? The one at the bottom looks definitely more rusted. I don't know if I would want anybody cutting into me with a rusted knife. Actually, on second thought, I don't think I would want anyone cutting into me, period, with a knife. And that's the difference between the two. The last thing he comes included with looks to be like a bone saw. It's very small. It's very brittle. And if you're not too careful, it would definitely break. And again, just to hold them up. The one on the top, I know it's a little harder to see on this case. The one on the top is the newer release. The one to the bottom is the original release 2 years before. Handles, again, look to be the same. Hooks also seem to be identical between the two. And they attach onto Pinhead exactly the same way. I want to make sure I don't keep track of which ones go which. Again, you have these little threadings that actually run out the front here of the suit. And then if you actually have a good eye, you're going to take then the hooks, and these hook then on to little strings. Boy, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Again, you can hook these on. I'm sure if you look online or you look and watch the movie, you could probably find the exact place where these are supposed to hook onto. One thing I did notice, though, on the strings here of Pinhead, that the strings seem a little looser than the one we looked at before. Again, you just basically rinse and repeat until you hook all three of them in. I guess I could technically hook all three of them in. I've already done the job of doing 2 of them. Why not actually complete the job and get all 3? Can we get them all on? We did get them all on. There we go. And that's what it looks like when he's actually got them hooked onto his body. We'll get back to that more in a moment. The figure also comes included with, of course, the Lament configuration box, 2 variations of it. One, the more commonly used to seeing cube, and then there's also the star formation. You can see the difference right there. I wish at some point NECA would actually go back to the licensing of Hellraiser, because, I mean, the last time we actually got anything Hellraiser was literally this guy that we're looking at right here. Here's what the puzzle box looks like from the one in this set. Here's what the original puzzle box looks like. Now, I think the features look sharper. Again, the one here to the right is the newer one. The one to the left is the original one. Maybe I would say like the gold is handled better on the one that was 2 years before, but I think like the details are actually a little sharper and cleaner to see on the newer release. What do you think? Again, let me know. And then, of course, we have our star configuration. Here's the star configuration before, and I think this is the more telltale sign that this one is handled nicer, a lot nicer. You can see a lot more of the details are shown here, especially even from the sides too. It's easier to make out the actual craftsmanship that would have gone into the puzzle box, whether you're actually trying to resurrect a demon or not. That's what the backside looks like as well. This one's a little bit more gold, but this one actually has better looking detailing showing, at least that I'm noticing. The puzzle boxes do fit into his hand. I'm just going to put those to the side and make sure I don't get them again confused. The stock hand, by the way, that he comes out of packaging with is actually more than enough to hold the puzzle box. It actually just cups inside his hand. So this is not a case where I would want to tip this over like the blizzard test, something I always do here on this channel. I'm not going to do that in this case because the puzzle box would end up onto the floor like it hasn't already before I hit record. Honestly, I spent about 10 minutes trying to track down where this puzzle box went to. But it does actually fit into his hands. Not really, again, like hands that hold it necessarily, as well as much as it just cups it. The figure also comes included. Let's just get him to stand back here again. He comes with a couple of tool holding hands, which really defeats the purpose completely because I've already now looped it onto the strings, but just to, again, bring in the ones that we looked at before. You know, again, in this case, I would almost even award the point to the original release because the blood looks more wet. This one looks a lot more dried. The black is also a lot shinier on the original hands than what we get here. The hands here, still shiny, aren't as shiny, though, as these original hands. The figure also comes included with these hands as well. Now, these hands, actually, this hand is, I think, a little bit better job for holding the puzzle. No, maybe not. It's about the same. You're still going to lose it if you're not too careful. This is the original, or this is the newer hand. This is the original hand. See how the blood is a little bit more reddish here in the original release? It's not as much the case here, but I think the skin tone is a little nicer and darker. Now, some would say actually the whiter here is a little bit better suited, but you know, the difference of the two hands, a little bit more warmth in the skin tone here. The last thing that the figure comes included with, as I'm just parting the C's, you can't actually see it. I'm just kind of moving the accessories out of the way in their designated 2019, 2021 piles. The figure also comes included with a swappable head sculpt. My biggest takeaway, really, in fact, when we had a look at the original Pinhead, I'm just going to bring in the screaming head sculpt, or the more angry-looking head, is I thought it was too blue. And in fact, not only was the blue, I think, too blue, but also I thought the pins looked a little too thick. I don't know if it's just simply by the fact that they changed the color scheme of the pins. Like the pins seem a little bit more darker, a little more muted of a silver, that they actually don't look as thick, as chunky as they did before. I don't know why. It just looks like it inhabits more of his face. I mean, the pins go in all the same places, and yet for some reason, the pins look like a little more subtler on the newer release. The teeth are also a little bit darker. There's a little bit more red added to the teeth. The eyes are also something I feel that stand out a lot more. And the skin tone is something I appreciate much more in the now 2021 release, as it being less blue and a little bit more red in there. Again, you can let me know down below which head sculpt you prefer. Going to put that to the side. And then we're going to go ahead and pick up the new Pinhead. And again, by new Pinhead, it's still 2021. We're now 2 years after that. But here's what the new Pinhead looks like that I found at locally Toys R Us. And here's again what the original Pinhead looked like. Too much blue. I feel too many of the features get lost, unfortunately, on his face that I feel does a better job and sharper job here on this release here. It's not, though, perfect. And one thing I noticed right away when I opened up the packaging was the way they've painted the bodies. I don't know why they felt the need to add a wash of silver on the front of his suit like this, because it does, I think, ruin the nice sculpting that they put into his body. The silver isn't everywhere, though. Oh, I think I may have actually just torn the string. Let's just put that to the side for right now. I'm going to have to go in there and fix it. I may ultimately, though, fix the problem anyways, because I think I'm planning just to change the heads. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a moment, but I just want to spin this around. You can see that some of the silver is actually making more of a presence here on the back of his body. It's a little bit more of a shinier silver, but again, like the back of the body isn't so bad. It's really when you then look at the front that there's way too much use of silver being added here. The arms are about the same. The skirting also seems to be the same, although, just to kind of hold the two figures up here for a second, does it seem to me like this one has more shinier finish to the skirting, whereas this one still is shiny, but doesn't have as much of the flex, as much of the silver actually into the suit itself. Do you see a difference? I think this one's a little shinier, isn't it? If we were to actually lift up the skirting, probably not something that Pinhead's going to be liking all that much. One thing that you don't really get the chance to see too much in the movie is the way they've actually like elaborately sculpted the suit underneath. Now, the original one would have had more purple on the guards. This one has a lot more of that silver. So what I might ultimately then do is I think I'm going to end up popping the head off this one and replacing it with the body on this one so I can get the best of both worlds. Heads, by the way, are pretty easy to change out. Just again, quickly show you guys the detailing on the face. Now, again, some of you might actually prefer the blue a little bit more. The blue definitely gives them a much colder demeanor. But I think by pulling it back, it also allows the features on the face to stand out a whole lot more. Changing out the heads, by the way, even actually instructed on the box, you really want to pull it from the ears. Don't want to pull it from the face, because even though these are softer plastic, you definitely don't want to be squishing them down. You just want to hold it from the sides of his ears and just pull that off the post. Pretty easy. And not only then is it easy to change it out with then the angrier head sculpt, which we can go ahead and put back in here. The collar piece, by the way, is a softer plastic. So let's just carefully, let's not squeeze any pins in the process, but just want to plunk this back down onto the post. And I may have to even just go and fix that up a little bit later. Did I pinch? I did fold down a couple of the pins. Just want to fold them back just to make sure I've got them all straight here. But that's again what the anger expression look like. And again, we're going to bring in, yeah, I don't know. It looks like the face definitely gets more lost here with the original release that we looked at before. I like this head sculpt a lot more. But now then begs the question, now that I really have two Pinheads essentially of the same figure, I might then just take this head sculpt and remove what I thought was the one thing that was the inferior end of this figure, and I'm going to replace it with the newer head sculpt. The only other thing I might end up doing is probably just changing out the hands, but I think really the color suits much better on the original release. There's still purples in there, but it's a far cry from the silver that we're getting with the 2021 release. Also, the thing I really like too is the way they've got the little belly button piercing that he has. It's a nicer use of the red, where here it's just a very stark red at the bottom of it. It kind of looks like an earlobe. Again, you can let me know down below in the comment section which color scheme you prefer. And while, again, like most of the body is pretty much the same, it's really the use of the silver that I feel takes away from the new 2021 release. So I think I'm going to ultimately do that. Now, moving what I feel to be a perfect Pinhead out of the way, let's have a look at the articulation here on the 2021 release. Head is on a ball post, so you're going to rotate it back and forth, but just again, be careful that you're not pushing down the pins in the process. Up and down goes the head, back and forth as well, and I guess you could technically rotate all the way around. Of course, he does have the higher collar piece on the back of his suit. Arms do come out. Now, again, I noticed they were tight on this figure, but to be fair, they were tight before on the other figure just because he's got larger shoulder pads on the tops of his arms. Arms do rotate all the way around, though. The figure does have a double hinge on the elbow, and the hands do rotate all the way around. The upper torso is on a ball joint. Yeah, it does look like that string did break. Biscuits. But he does have an upper torso ball joint. The legs, if you could kind of get underneath the skirt. Just bring up the skirt here for a second. I know this is going to embarrass Pinhead, but the legs are actually on ball joints, so you can actually hinge those out. Some really cool sculpting on the inside of the legs there. The legs go forward. The legs go back. There's a mild swivel at the top of the thigh. There is a double hinge on the knee, just really tighten the figure. Oh, actually, I should say single hinge. Didn't want to say double hinge. A single hinge on the knee. And then there's the articulation in the ankle that goes up, down. And of course, you can also rock it back and forth as well. So it's not always the case. And one last thing I want to say just before we wrap things up. As you probably have already noticed by now, the skirting does have a wire frame. The wire frame runs all the way around the bottom of the base. It certainly does mean that when you get this guy initially out of the packaging, you may just want to straighten out things because this is going to be all like tucked in. I had to kind of fold everything out. But he's got a wire frame running down the sides, and then all the way around the bottom area as well. Let's get him a little bit more decently displayed. So again, like here's the 2021 release Pinhead. Just move him over. And again, here's the original one. Now, again, because I do have now two working head sculpts, I'm going to ultimately be fixing the one problem I had with this figure when we initially had a look at this guy years ago was I didn't like the color scheme of the head sculpts. These heads, I feel, again, were way too blue. And by picking up now a later release, did not necessarily guarantee me a perfect Pinhead, but it did give me one step closer in making a perfect looking Pinhead, using the brand new head sculpts that come included with this release, and then using what I thought was a better looking body with the original release to give us two better looking Pinheads, at least the better looking Pinheads that I could put on the shelf. As I've said before, picking up a reissue NECA figure does not always guarantee one a better looking figure from head to toe. In fact, sometimes you might actually find yourself finding better parts about the figure that if you already have the older one figure before, you can kind of Frankenstein together a better looking figure, maybe using some of the head parts, like in this case with Pinhead. We used a better looking head that I thought was with the newer release than one we got before, but I ended up using the body from the original release to get what I think is a better, superior looking Pinhead. I'm not sure the reasoning why NECA decided to put some silver wash on the front of his suit. It is the one detractor from making this a better looking Pinhead. If not for that, I think all the rest of the accessories and all the things that come included with the figure are in better cases, in most cases, better than the 2019 release we looked at before. The puzzle boxes seem sharper. The features on those sides look a little easier to see. The weapons also that he's wielding, or in this case, would have carried around on the string, had the string unfortunately not broken. But that's also looks like the paint's handled a little bit better and a little rusted in some of the cases also as well. That if not for that one thing, the one silver that's washed on front of the suit, I would almost say that this is a better looking Pinhead that's worth picking up if you get the chance to find them. In a case like this, I almost have to say that it's a part of a bigger story that you have to pick up one Pinhead, and then if you already were lucky enough to have the one before, take the head off this one, put it on the, well, obviously we saw in the review, take this one, put it with the body of the 2019 release, and I think collectively, between those two releases, you're getting a better looking Pinhead. Better looking head from this release, better looking body from the one we got released before. But what do you guys think of this figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. Have you had the chance? Are you somebody even that picks up reissue NECA figures? Or am I really the only one? I know there are people out there that usually go out of their way to try to track down those lot numbers. And that's the reason why as well I do these reviews and show you guys those lot numbers just in case you are curious. And like say, for example, you want to get the Cenobite silver suit that we get here with this release, at least the product number, the lot number is available there so that you guys can track it down based on that lot number alone. And sometimes too, you can also, if you're buying a figure on eBay or from a store online, you can also a lot of times ask them what's the lot number on those packages to kind of give you an idea, first of all, what kind of color scheme, what kind of paint is handled on that figure. It also gives you an idea of when that figure was first produced from NECA's factory. Let me know down below in the comments section if you ever had the chance to pick up Ultimate Pinhead. And whether it's been a newer release figure that you picked up, or like myself, it was the one that we got from years before. Also as well, if you enjoyed this video, I want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and love the fact as well that we've been looking at some reissue figures here as of late, just know that there are going to be more coming your way. But as well, if you enjoyed this video, hit with a like. If you're loving the content, yeah, you guys are seeing and you certainly want to stick around for more, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below, and that you're also turning on the bell notification. I don't think the bell notification is anywhere near that crack that's forming in the wall that has all this light peering out of it. I knew I shouldn't have touched that box, but there are definitely going to be a lot more videos coming your way. As always, guys, I better hurry before the chains come out. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.